Hi, my name is Chandler Swope, and I'm the Director of Youth Services for the Huntington's Disease Youth Organization. I'm very excited to be here, even though it's virtual, with HD Reach to talk to you guys all about talking to kids about HD. So before I go into that, I'd like to talk a little bit about who HDO is and what services that we offer. HDO, or the Huntington's Disease Youth Organization, is an international nonprofit that provides support and education for young people up to age 35 who are impacted by HD. For us, this means anyone who has HD in their lives. They may be at risk, they may be in an extended family, they may have a close family friend, or they may be a caregiver. Our goal is to help through support and education improve their lives, find hope, and make sure that they have accesses to information and resources. Our website provides age and stage appropriate information, again, for young people, teens, young adults, caregivers, professionals. We do this in a variety of ways because we understand that there's lots of different types of learners. So we have HDO Land, which is our computer game for our youngest of those in the population that are impacted. We also have our YouTube channel, which has a ton of videos covering everything from sort of the basics of the genetics of HD to what it's like to go through the testing process and how do people cope even years after testing, both positive and negative. We have our youth service, which is really the services that I provide. So I work with families one-on-one to have conversations about HD, provide information. I work with young people to kind of process through everything that's going on. We host our youth camps. So those are for young people impacted by HD. We held one in North America every year. Unfortunately, we won't be doing one this year, but stay tuned for details for 2021 and beyond. And those events are 5 days where young people get to come together with a group of their peers, talk a lot about HD, but also get some respite from some of the activities they may do at home in regards to caregiving and those sorts of things. We have private Facebook groups for both parents and young people that are moderated, so we make sure the information is correct and accurate. And it's a way we find out too what the community is most concerned about at any given time. How can we help meet the needs of the community? We produce toolkits to talk with different providers, whether it is for the professionals or for families. So we've created one that is getting finalized for understanding the genetic testing process. What does that really look like? What are your rights as an individual? We're also working on one that families can provide to their schools. So not only can schools understand what HD, the impact is for families, but also sometimes when there's juvenile Huntington's, how schools can best assist and use the resources that they have. We have a wonderful webinar series. So we bring in professionals from pharmaceutical companies, genetic counselors, psychiatrists, OBGYNs to talk about pre-implantation genetic testing and those sorts of things. You can find that all on our YouTube channel and always connect with our social media to find out when we're hosting new ones. And then we are excited that we'll be hosting our first ever International Congress for young adults in March of 2021. It was supposed to be May of this year, but with the impact of things, we've moved it back a year. So that is out for people 18 to 35. So I'm happy to respond to any requests about that as well. So as I mentioned, I'm here today to talk about talking to kids, and I think it seems pretty straightforward. But with the history of HD, it can be incredibly difficult to have these conversations. Of course, it's compounded by the fact that there's lots of other things that go on for families. There's other things that they're dealing with. There's other things that they've got going on. There's other impacts from what's going on in their community. And so HD can be really hard to talk about. And part of that is there haven't always been tools to talk about HD. There wasn't stuff for families or age and stage appropriate information for young people. So having the conversation with no resources could easily seem pointless to people because there was nothing safe and appropriate for to share with young people. And then there was the history of stigma with HD, where many families were taught to keep it a secret and not to talk about it. And it's really hard to change that perspective. When we are sort of brought up in a way and we're trained in certain ways, it's hard to break those cycles and those patterns of communication within families. And so that's understandable. But the reality is we have tons of more information and resources. There's a lot of fear when it comes for parents about talking to HD. How much can young people handle? What if they say the wrong thing? What are the negative impacts of knowing? Interestingly enough, nobody thinks about the positive impacts, but in working with young people, there are positive impacts of knowing about HD early and having those tough conversations. And oftentimes, if your experience as a parent of learning about HD when you were younger, depending on what age that was, may have been very traumatic. It may have been a secret, and then something bad happened, something big, a fall, a hospitalization, something that you had no context for. That's traumatic. And we hold on to trauma in lots of ways. So trying to break that cycle to give your children a different experience can be really scary and hard. And again, like I said, there weren't resources before, but now there are youth services, there are events, there's so much information and education available for families that parents have a lot more access to things to be able to have these conversations with their family. We do need to talk to children. It can be really difficult, but they have a right to know. This is part of their family story. It's part of their medical information. They are at risk, and that's part of their medical information. It also helps them feel like they're a valued member of that family by being excluded from major bits of information, even major decision-making conversations can make them feel that they're not valued in the family, whether that was the intent. Generally, the intent is to protect children, but unfortunately, sometimes they can see it as not being valued or not being able to handle the information. Lastly, or also, children are more observant than we think. They see things, they notice changes. They know their parents better than anyone. So they'll notice the small changes. And although they might not say anything, who knows what they're thinking? Depending on the age of your children, imaginations can run wild. And sometimes, as scary as HD is, their imagination can make it even scarier. They could learn about it from someone else. So biology classes cover HD fairly in depth nowadays, where it used to be a sentence or two. There's oftentimes that HD becomes a project, and so they may connect the dots on their own or hear it's from somebody else in the family, and then they feel lied to. And that they can hold resentment with that. And so rather than having an open mode and open flow of communication, it tends to have them close themselves off, which then doesn't give them the ability to process all of this. And like I said before, it's part of their story. And as scary as HD is, we know that young people can learn about it, handle it, and thrive. And so having these conversations, when it's appropriate, your children the best, when it is the most appropriate time that your child can handle this information. But what we do know from years of sort of observation and research is that young people can handle this information, and they can take it and make it part of their story and make it part of what their everyday is. Not discussing HD, parents do that as a protective factor. That's your job as parents. And it is easy to understand, to feel that HD is too much to handle, and that, there's all these other things going on and we should handle, X, Y, or Z first. But again, young people, there can be some real negative impacts to not talking about it. They can fill in gaps. If they only know a little bit, they can fill in the gaps on their own. Again, now that there's lots of information out there that is appropriate and correct, it's easier to get the right information than the wrong information. But there's still a lot of misinformation out there on the internet that is wrong, is more terrifying, is not written appropriately. Depending on the age, young people feel like they have a lot of control over things. young people, when they get angry, kids in particular can say, I wish this would happen. And if something happens, they feel very responsible for it. So if they're not being told, they can easily think that this is their fault, that they did something to contribute to this. They can get really, really angry about not knowing, particularly if they're a teen or young adult and they knew that you, as parents, knew about this for a while and they weren't included. And that again puts more barriers to healthy and open and honest communication within the family, because it can be really hard to let go of feeling lied to and the anger that comes with it. It can continue the cycle of shame, and that HD is taboo. And it creates then another generation where there's communication barriers to learning about HD and even participating in all the great things that are available now, whether it's support groups, trials, making sure that they know where good clinical care is. It can lead young people to feeling hopeless and isolated. They, again, may know something is going on, but by not talking about it, feeling like they aren't allowed to talk about it, not sure what it is, can lead them to feel very hopeless and isolated, which can lead to depression and anxiety and some other concerns that will then add on to the stress in the family. Again, breaking down the communication in the family can also then put strains on relationships. And HD is hard enough on every family to sort of deal with the ups and downs. And so the more positive communication patterns we can have in a family, the more positive interactions, the stronger those family relationships are, the easier it is to come at this as a team. And again, it generates fear. Generally, we know if somebody's keeping something from us, we tend to think that it's something bad, and that generates a lot of fear in people, and holding on to that again leads to stress and anxiety. It can lead to poor school performance and other things for young people. And again, going back, young people have a right to know about what's going on in the family. I think especially when it's something that's going to impact them frequently, regularly, and impact their future if they are a biological child not at risk. It's information that they deserve to have as much time as possible to cope with and deal with those decision-making processes. Knowledge is power. We do know that HD is scary, but knowing about it, knowing where to go to ask questions, knowing where to get information helps them manage the ups and downs as they come. We can't predict what HD will look like for anyone, but knowing some of the typical things or some things that are seen in HD and are as normal as can be in HD helps them manage those ups and downs a little bit easier, and helps them feel like they have some control in that situation. And again, young people, children, humans in general are resilient. We are designed to take things on. We have dealt with things as families, as individuals, as long as we've been around. And so this isn't easy. There's not one way to do it, but what we do know is young people are resilient. And by having information, by feeling like they have some control, they tend to do better and they can really thrive with this information. I have seen young people take this information and it has spurred them to do some amazing things. HDO was founded because a young person had this information and decided that he wanted young people to have a different experience. He wanted a safe place for them to go. And now we've been able to impact the lives of hundreds of thousands of people because he had that information. Knowledge is absolutely power in this situation. Again, it's hard to know where to start. And what I always say when I'm working with families is you are the expert of your children. You are the expert in your family. My job, no professional's job, is to judge or blame whatever has happened or the decisions that you've made that you thought were best. But if you've gotten to the place where you're ready to have some of these tough conversations, and there's some tips that we have for talking to your children. If possible, tell all the kids at the same time. Again, short of a really big age range, it's important that young people have and siblings have all the same information. You don't need to give it all at the same time, so you can have a pretty low level conversation with everyone. And then again, depending on ages, experiences, maturity level, where they are developmentally, then individually you can have different conversations with your children. But they were then told all at the same time, they feel equal, they feel included. It's best to talk wherever's comfortable. It doesn't need to be a sit down, sort of scary family meeting. It can be in a car, it can be at a park. It can be while shooting hoops in the backyard. It doesn't need to be something where they feel sort of not in a safe environment. So we know that young people tend to open up when they sort of have things to distract them. And so by doing an activity, can be during a family game night. So things that kind of distract them generally help young people feel a little bit easier about taking on this big information. Being as positive as possible with your approach. We are fortunate that now we're in a time where there are trials for disease modification. So there are things to be hopeful about. There are things that could mean that the future looks different for your children. And so taking that approach, I think being, cautiously optimistic is okay with your young people. Again, little bit at a time. You don't need to do it all in one sitting. And a lot of times they'll ask the questions that they have when they're ready to ask them. As soon as you open up the lines of communication and they know that it's okay to talk about, they'll come to you when they're ready. Educate, educate, educate. The more information that they have, the easier it is. There are so many amazing resources out there, and there'll be a resource page. There'll be resources listed here at the end that you have that are available to you. And I think the one conversation to have, again, depending on where the loved one in the family is with their disease, is helping young people or even teens and young adults sort of separate out, is this the disease or the person? We know HD causes a lot of changes, and having that conversation of reminding people that this is Huntington's. This is not mom or dad or grandma or whomever might be ill in the family, but this is Huntington's disease making them act this way. Also helps, again, maintain healthy relationships in the family. How can HDO help you? First and foremost is our website. We have age and stage appropriate information. There are tabs for kids, teens, young adults, partners and friends, parents, and even professionals. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, our information is accessible to all types of learners. We have lots of text. We have our YouTube channel, so tons of videos. And we also have HDO Land, which is a game for our youngest learners. There are ways to ask a question on every page, and we will answer it directly. If it's something that is out of our realm of expertise, we will make sure we go to the right professional, whether it be a psychiatrist or genetic counselor or neurologist, to get the correct information without breaking confidentiality, to ensure that we're giving you the right information. And again, we have access to these professionals. We have the youth service. So those are the services I provide. I'm available to any family anywhere in the country to assist as I can. That may be videoing in for a family conference. It may be training other professionals in your life. So I have done trainings for schools, local counselors, other groups in that your family interacts with, so they can help understand it. It takes some of that burden off of you as the family to always be the ones to educate. I can answer questions. And again, I can help connect young people to other young people. We have our secret Facebook group. So again, we have one for young people and one for parents. You can easily access those from our website. They're moderated, and it's a great way to interact with other people who have similar experiences, to ask questions, not just to professionals, but to the real professionals, which are the families living with HD every single day. And then we have our camps and events. Again, our North American camp is one of my favorite events. We bring about 50 young people in. And for the first time, HD is the most normal thing there. They share bits and pieces about themselves that they probably don't share with their peers back home, because for the first time, they know that everyone there really, really gets it. It helps them feel less isolated. It gives them a really safe space to process some of the feelings. And then they get to stay connected, and there's ongoing support, not just with the professionals that are there to help run and staff the camp, but from their 50 peers that go through that experience with them. Again, we're taking this to another level with our Young Adult Congress in May 2021, which we are very excited about. And then there's lots of resources. Our website, Dr. Bonnie Hennig-Tressman, who's also giving a presentation at this virtual education day, is a member of our board, and she wrote a wonderful book about talking to kids. It's available on Amazon Kindle, super easy to read. A lot of our tips on our website have come from Dr. Hennig-Tressman's book. Highly recommend it. Through the Huntington's Association in Western Australia, they have a wonderful parenting pack that's available online. Some of it's a little culturally relevant to Australia, but I think it gives some great resources for families for different age groups. We have our parent support space on Facebook, and then the Huntington's Disease Society of America, HDSA, also has a wonderful publication about talking to children that you can access on their website as well. I really appreciate being able to come here virtually and share this information with you guys. My information is readily available on our website. I'm happy for any family to reach out and connect with me if I can provide any sort of support for parents, for young people, or for resources and professionals in your community. So thank you so much, and I look forward to reconnecting with everyone in person as soon as we have navigated this global crisis. Thank you, and I will see everyone soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.